The real plan of China to collaborate with Russia. A year after Russia invaded Ukraine, the war continues. China, which hasn't openly supported Russia's actions, might change its stance after a meeting between their top diplomat Wang Ye and Vladimir Putin. This meeting could lay the groundwork for an alliance that divides the world. Wang Ye is a powerful figure in China but answers to Xi Jinping. His recent visit to Moscow is interesting because it occurred shortly after President Joe Biden's surprise visit to Ukraine, which conveyed that the US and the West are no longer afraid of Russia and will support Ukraine economically, militarily, and with humanitarian aid. Wang Yi's meeting with Russian leadership initially appears to seek peace and a diplomatic resolution in Ukraine, but China believes Russia shouldn't be forced to return all seized territory and both sides should make concessions. In reality, China wants the war to end as it disrupts their plans and seeks Russia's help against Western ideologies. The proposed alliance will only happen if it benefits China, which could be detrimental to the US and its allies. During the Moscow meeting, there was a discussion about global crises and chaos that could prevent opportunities. China has been planning to seize these opportunities for a while. The war in Ukraine has shown China that Western powers unite when necessary, and the US is willing to support countries resisting authoritarian regimes using non-military means. China dreams of sharing global power with the United States, and to achieve this, they need Russia's help. However, China is not interested in giving Russia equal power. They want certain resources from Russia to fulfill their potential. The meeting between Wang Yi and Vladimir Putin in Moscow is seen as a prelude to a formal meeting between Putin and Xi Jinping. While Western nations closely watch President Biden's visit and NATO's military aid to Ukraine, the partnership between Russia and China is evolving. Currently, they are not true allies. China has not supported Russia in the war with Ukraine, unlike the West. Chinese companies have aided Russia in bypassing sanctions, but China's support is not active. China and Russia have a mutually beneficial pact based on similar principles, but they are not obligated to defend each other. Russia relies more on China than the other way around, as Putin's reliability is questionable. When Putin met Xi Jinping before invading Ukraine, he claimed that their partnership had no limits, but China's limited support for Russia's war against Ukraine contradicted that statement. Despite meeting over 40 times since 2012, China and Russia are not close friends. Recent actions have shown that each country prioritizes its own interests and cares little about the success of others, including their closest partners. However, the spread of Western ideologies has prompted the possibility of an actual alliance between China and Russia for their own survival. China currently sees its relationship with Russia more as a convenience than a necessity. The shared perception of Western encroachment and the presence of NATO, especially US troops, worldwide have pushed Russia and China closer together. Experts agree that the China-Russia alliance is not natural, but a result of their deteriorating relations with the West. Their shared enemy binds them together, leading to economic agreements and cooperation. Trade between the two nations has been growing for 2 decades and reached a record high of $147 billion in 2021. However, it's important to note that the economic reliance between Russia and China is lopsided. Russia relies on China's economic support more than the other way around. Russia's top trading partner is currently China, whereas the European Union was their top partner before the invasion of Ukraine. China, on the other hand, has the EU, the United States, and South Korea as its top trading partners. The economic relationship between China and Russia is primarily driven by energy needs, especially for China, as their manufacturing and exporting capabilities require significant amounts of oil, natural gas, and coal. Russia has an abundance of energy resources, such as oil and natural gas, which China buys in large quantities. This benefits both countries economically, especially as Europe has reduced its energy purchases from Russia due to sanctions. China gets discounted prices for energy, while Russia gains trade deals and boosts its economy. The close economic ties between Russia and China lead to mutual benefits and support their economic growth. Another factor in their growing relationship is their authoritarian political systems. Both leaders, Putin and Xi Jinping, share a goal of maintaining power and control over their populations. They frequently meet to discuss strategies for authoritarian regimes in a changing world. Although there are differences in their governments, both Russia and China use similar tactics to spread influence, including joint operations and manipulating foreign affairs through gray zone tactics. Russia tends to be more militarily aggressive, while China focuses on undermining democratic processes through election interference and manipulation of social media platforms like TikTok. It's possible that their relationship has also involved sharing misinformation, techniques, and gray zone tactics. In the United Nations Security Council, China and Russia tend to support each other or avoid opposing each other. However, their foreign interests are not always aligned. Russia focuses on influencing former Soviet republics in Asia using tactics like misinformation campaigns and cyber attacks. Putin aims to create a new Russian empire by preventing former Soviet territories from adopting democratic policies. On the other hand, China aims to be the dominant economic and influential power in Asia without expanding borders. It wants global influence, but not war with the US. While China benefits from economic growth, Russia's economy faces challenges due to Western sanctions. Their differing perspectives have caused disagreements. China has achieved economic rise through questionable practices while avoiding armed conflicts. It uses manufacturing power, economic wealth, and initiatives like the Belt and Road to spread influence. Russia, however, is losing power and influence, especially after the war in Ukraine. While China plays by global norms, Russia disregards international standards. China prefers to keep a low profile, while Russia takes risks and faces sanctions. Their different approaches and lack of trust make a prolonged alliance difficult. China is cautious about getting involved in armed conflicts and wants to maintain economic growth and influence. Russia, on the other hand, seeks to expand its borders and uses aggressive tactics. China has observed Russia's actions in Ukraine and noted the strong Western response, which could impact China's plans for Taiwan. China has used Russia as a test case and offers limited support while watching the outcome. The military aspect of the China-Russia alliance worries the West as they have increased defensive cooperation and joint projects in missile systems and space exploration. China used to rely on Russia for weapons, but now it builds its own as its defense industry grows. There's distrust between the two governments, and Russia withheld some advanced weapons to prevent reverse engineering. Both China and Russia are major arms exporters, but Russia's sales have decreased due to its focus on Ukraine. Joint military exercises between China and Russia aim to send a message to the West about their cooperation. However, it is not a formal alliance, as China is cautious about being dragged into a war. Their recent meetings between Wang Ye and Vladimir Putin indicates increased cooperation and stronger ties. While a formal alliance is unlikely, the growing relationship could pose challenges for NATO and the West. Coordination and joint exercises will likely continue to express opposition to Western influence. China blames the West for the conflict in Ukraine and seeks to broker peace by urging the US and NATO to stop sending weapons to Ukraine. China's call for peace in Ukraine are seen as a disguise to help Russia avoid a catastrophic loss. China knows that if aid stops, Russia's chances of winning or keeping stolen territory would improve. A Russian defeat could lead to instability and jeopardize agreements between China and Russia. It would also weaken Russia's ability to counter Western influence concerning Western powers. Putin's plan to suspend the Nuclear Arms Reduction Treaty is seen as posturing and a tantrum. Such actions are dangerous, as massing nuclear weapons leads to no winners. Both China and Russia fear the spread of Western ideologies and aim to maintain their power. Closer cooperation between them is seen as necessary to achieve their goals. Discussions focus on opposing unilateral behavior and safeguarding sovereignty and development interests. The regimes in China and Russia want to retain power and view authoritarian rule as the best approach. They seek to unite against Western democratic ideas. An alliance between China and Russia is driven by necessity.